Welcome into another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sidelines.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No fucking play is that a gimme, right?
Here we go, folks, on a new day and time. That's right. Moving forward, Gas will be Monday mornings. Now, today, we push it back a little bit because our new time will be on Mondays at 9 a.m. However, Jason Anik is in Las Vegas, so that would have meant a 6 a.m. wake-up call. So we pushed back to a normal time so that everybody can, wake up and be the best version of themselves. Jay from Vegas, good morning.
Great to see you. You know, it's interesting seeing you in this Titleist hat in the winter you've had. And my barber is from Rhode Island, Andy, which I've told you before.
Oh, my.
He said, is it accurate? Like this was more than the blizzard of 78 where you are?
Oh, my God. Not even close. It was 10 inches more. I mean, it was a full porn star more of snow. It was 27.8 inches in the blizzard of 78. And I know Fall River down the road from me, they registered 40 inches of snow. So I went to the east side of Providence today, over near like Brown University and Moses Brown School and stuff like that. Jay, it's still a disaster over there a week later. They haven't been able to shave all the snow away from what would be street parking around schools and businesses. Forget about it. It's just piled everywhere. Every municipality that deals with snow should invest in one of those giant snow melter things so you could just dump it right in there. And then, I mean, they literally had them brought in from out of state. That's how bad they really needed them, because there's a parking lot up the street from my house completely full of snow. They have nowhere to put it. And if they can't, I mean, you literally got to wait for the good Lord to send us 50-degree weather on Wednesday for it to really be chipped away. Oh, no, it's a week later and it's still a shit show.
So I live in South Florida. I'm in Las Vegas right now. Pretty fucking sunny.
Oh, dude.
So not complaining, but I'm out here with my brother. You know, he's doing a couple days voiceover work, and then UFC 326 beckons. I'm here for the 2026 PGF season. For those that don't know, you should know, Professional Grappling Federation World. And Gresh, I've talked about this on the show, and I know we'll get into our topics, but I just want to tell you real quickly, like, I've never been on a mat. I've never trained jiu-jitsu in my life, barely done a somersault, right? Yet this is like one of my favorite things I do. There are 4 franchises. It's like a team-based sport, right? So it's week 1 of the regular season begins Wednesday night. We come at you on a Monday. So I will be out in Vegas for 5 straight Wednesday nights of regular season jiu-jitsu competition. Team champion will be named after those 5 weeks. Then the 6 weeks playoff. So I'm really excited. I could get into a lot of details, but the only thing I want to tell you, you have 4 franchises to root for. So like, if you want to get in now and pick a squad, you got the Las Vegas Kings, Alabama Twisters, Philadelphia Phenoms. They like going by the Philly Phenoms. That's not my favorite team. Can't be Philly, right? And the Colorado Wolverines. So it's just fascinating. Really happy to be part of this with Brandon McCaffrey and everybody else. But I just want to shout out PGF. Going to be a fun week here. I get really excited to do this.
And you should. And we've talked about how this is the strength of mixed martial arts, that there are now other brands other than UFC. I think a lot of people, just on name notoriety, Jay, I think a lot of people think, well, UFC is mixed martial arts. No, you practice mixed martial arts, and there are different leagues for you to then compete in. And I think some people I don't think people completely understand that.
It's so funny that you say that. I can't believe how good that transition is. So I was with my Aunt Jill, my mom's sister, this weekend. And she asked me, she said, she was almost like embarrassed. She's like, what's the difference between MMA and UFC? right? She asked me that question. But interestingly enough, Gresh, the reason I called you this weekend out of the blue, I called Gresh, by the way, when he was live on air.
Yeah, live on the air. It was awesome. You were so jacked up.
There are very few people that I just dial, but there was something that I wanted to tell Gresh, and I didn't want to send him like a text. So I'll tell you now. So my Aunt Jill, I spent all this time with her, hadn't seen her in a few years. And at the end of our time together, I was like, by the way, do you know who Andy Gresh is? You're like, of course I know who Andy Gresh is.
Oh,
so
no.
My Aunt Jill is a diehard Boston sports fan, loves Gresh, does not like the current local talent on air.
Wow.
Didn't know we did a show together. So that was the reason that I called you. So shout out my Aunt Jill. She's a huge Gresh fan, and she was like so excited that we were doing a show.
Oh, my God.
A year in, and she didn't even know.
First of all, what's up, Aunt Jill? And second of all, yeah, Jay and I will text normally first and then phone call second. It depends on the level of business or what we want to talk about, right? And it's 11:30, and I do my show on Mad Dog Radio until noon, and he called, and I thought, oh, man, I wonder if something's wrong. I had just gone to a Mad Dog Sports Bite, so I actually picked up the call, and I was like, dude, what's up, man? I'm on the air. I'm in the middle of a sports bite, and he's like, oh, shit. I kind of spaced on because you were so jacked up about Aunt Jill.
Right.
Finding out that we did a show together, which is completely flattering, and now I feel like an asshole that I didn't get back to you right away, but I know that you were in transit as well.
Yeah, and well, ultimately, like, it's the old school component. We live in this stupid world where, like, my daughter doesn't have like a home phone to call her buddies. That's what I used to do. In high school, I talked to my girlfriend on our home phones.
And you had the big long cord, right? You had the big long extension. You had the big long cord.
Yes. And so I wanted to have an organic moment where I was like, I want to tell Gresh something, so I'm going to pick up the telephone. I'm going to call him. So yes, obviously you're smart enough to, if you're on air, you're not going to have your phone ringing like Ray Longo on the Anik and Florian podcast. But you get my point that it's not. I didn't break any eggs by calling you.
Not even close. No, God, no, not even close. I was flattered, and now I'm even more flattered. And I love the leaving your ringer on. Zolak and I fought about that for like a year and a half because he would always forget to turn the ringer off. So you're in Vegas for a couple of days. I am going out Thursday,
right,
for UFC 326. We're gonna be out there, and I have to say, I think Brandon Moreno, everybody seems to love him. He seems to be a nice guy, but fuck him. He screwed me on 3 parlays by losing to a guy who showed up in the altitude of Mexico City during the week. And first of all, I didn't know N-O or L-O-N-E-R apostrophe. It's not a tilde. E-R. I didn't know that was Lonnie Kavanaugh. I thought his name was Lonerer or something like that. It's like, what the hell? This kid shows up from England, right? During the week, altitude, no big deal. And he goes in and embarrasses Brandon Moreno in his own country. And yes, I'm pissed because I had 3 really juicy parlays that all would have hit had Moreno come through. But I also have to ask, Jay, what the hell was that for Moreno?
Well, betting MMA is better to be lucky than good, I'll say. And let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Going into that fight, how convicted were you on Moreno, or how much was it just throwing a leg in the parlay?
No. I was in on Moreno because I really bought into the altitude being a factor. And the fact that Kavanaugh got thrown in during the week, like I think he fought in Mexico City on Saturday, he got there on like Monday or Tuesday or whatever. And I've even heard from the pro athletes, like the NFL guys, like the adjustment in Denver isn't like the adjustment to the altitude in Mexico City. It's very different. And I thought with Moreno's home field advantage, the reason the place was filled was because he was there. The way he looked in his last fight, and this guy, he felt like fresh meat and a dude who was more than horny to jump at the opportunity to try to beat Brandon Moreno, and then turn around and did so. And I just thought it was a really lackluster performance from Moreno. I didn't like his activity. I didn't think there was enough. He got rocked, I think it was, in that second round pretty good that carried over into the third. it felt like Moreno was maybe cashing a check and really underestimated Kavanaugh. I'm hot because he screwed the parlays, but no, Jay, I was in on experience, short week opponent, and the altitude.
Fair. And Cody, forgive me, I feel as though it isn't Moreno's first underwhelming performance in Mexico. Right. I feel as though maybe he has had another moment like this. But yeah, Gresh, I'd be lying to you if I told you he was heading towards his MMA peak. Right. He's had a great career.
32.
But either way, right, I think it depends on the athlete, right? I think the MMA prime may be later than 32.
Interesting.
But Brandon Moreno, I think, is still on the way down the mountain in terms of his MMA prime, if you will. His individual MMA prime. He's achieved a lot. It is what it is. I didn't catch a ton of that card.
Sure.
But I'll be interested to see who you like this weekend. And I know you and your boys obviously will have some action, but you'll be in the belly of the beast out here to be able to bet it however you want.
How is it out there, by the way?
It's great. We're staying here, and I guess I probably shouldn't say where John's staying. I don't know how much he likes it. He didn't care. No, it's good, man. It's good. I'm excited to be out here. For me, I came out a little bit early, so John and I can have some time together, hanging out on the front of his week, before it gets a little too hectic for him.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I already, I know we get there on Thursday. I know it's crazy late. I threw the invite. I was just like, dude, if you got to eat, and we have a car, so we'll literally Hulk Hogan you to the back entrance, you know what I mean, to keep you sequestered. And he knows that that invite is there, but the end of his weeks are pretty crazy. And this is the PGF draft. Is that what we're looking at here, Jay?
No, this is just highlights. I think it's, but if you look right, look at the environment, look at the couches and the lights. And by the way, those lights flicker when they throw a penalty flag on the athlete for stalling. Just like the NFL. It really is unbelievable what they've built. But anyway, let's get into the topics, Gresh. We got a green screen for you. By the way, Bone, let's get some black in that screen next week, dog.
And congrats to Bone, by the way, who's starting a new gig as well. Good for our guy, Cody Bone Marrow. There we go.
Deserved. And by the way, Cody Marrow executed a great new segment today on the Anik and Florian podcast flawlessly as usual. Put it in Cody's hands and just let go. So the Boston Celtics, Andrew, 40-20 without Jason Tatum. Let's start there. I mean, couldn't be more impressed. And, Joe Mazzulla probably can't wait for the opportunity that he gets to potentially infiltrate Tatum back in. I think Friday, March 6th is going to be the night. Feels like it's moving in that direction, don't you think?
Yeah. It's going to be the end of the week. And I think, and remember I brought up this whole documentary that JT is doing about his big comeback. It is very NBA superstar like. It's dramatic. Oh, I'm so into my work. Watch me work on this documentary while I talk about the work and show everyone I'm doing the work. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. But it's the NBA superstar. They're just dramatic in that way. But mixed in all of that was Jason Tatum saying, I ain't coming back to be a role player. So we wondered, what kind of mindset will Jason Tatum have? So I'm curious as to how you view this. Is this Jason Tatum doing right for him and sort of not thinking about the team because he has to be focused on his own comeback because he is at a different standard than other players? Or is this a guy that is saying to the team, no, I'm coming back and we're ready to take off. And the best use of me, Joe Mazzulla, is to have me in the lineup and use me the way that I usually do. Is this Tatum being selfish and dictating to the team? Or is this Tatum dictating the way it really should go because he is Jason effing Tatum?
I think it's getting his own mental ready. Everyone talks about getting sort of to that mental space. And I think that's part of, that physically he's probably ready to go. He's certainly doing the 5-on-5 scrimmages. I think it's the mental piece. I am not worried about the communication of this organization in sort of infiltrating Jason Tatum back into things, however it is, whether it's coming in off the bench early. I think it'll be a communicative discussion, right? It was a 12-member consortium that is or was going to determine when he was going to come back and play.
Oh,
so I just have great confidence in the ability for Joe Mazzulla and Jason Tatum to communicate with one another, and Brad Stevens, among others, and them to sort of play it by ear and have there be a little spontaneity to it. But his point is very well taken, that if they have any consideration to hoist a trophy this year, and he's not coming back unless they really thought they could. And honestly, I think maybe they can. I think maybe they have a chance. It reminds me a little bit of the Patriots this year, where it felt like they weren't a contender until they were. Like, Celtics feel like they're live. So I think Tatum ultimately needs to be a superstar, needs to be a 1 or 1A with Brown if they're going to get to their goals. But they're playing some great fucking basketball. I'm excited.
Last week to win the East, they were plus 370. This week they're down to plus 300. Now, some of that may be the reaction to Cleveland and Fatty Harden banging up his thumb or something like that. But I think people are starting to buy into the Celtics even more. You know, when we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, there was the thought that the, whatever bounce from Tatum was already baked into the number, and you've shaved $70 of value off of that already from going from 370 down to 300. So it will be interesting to see not only how the betting market ends up reacting, but there's not much teams can do in the East. This is now going to be this is better than making a great trade in getting Jason Tatum back, and with this kind of mindset. And tonight is the back end of one of two remaining back-to-backs for the Celtics. I just did this like schedule breakdown. So if Tatum does come back on Friday, there's only one other time there'll be a back-to-back. Otherwise, it's every other day. So you're pretty much getting into that kind of playoff way that the algorithm works in terms of the setup of the series, which I think is perfect for Tatum. And now the challenge really shifts to Joe Mazzulla. Don't lose what you've gained. Find a way to work in a great player, and find a way to make sure that Jaylen Brown doesn't pout about it. You know, that's also on the other end of this in my mind, because JB has been pretty, upfront this year about how well he's played, and people have given him the recognition. But we know automatically it's going to be, well, JB, you kind of go back to your role, and hopefully he doesn't have a pout about that, or Mazzulla can at least control it.
I would never use the word pout and Jaylen Brown in the same sentence, and you did it twice. I think ultimately it's going to be pretty natural, Gresh, right? Like, it's not as if Jason Tatum is losing sleep over the fact that Jaylen Brown was the NBA Finals MVP. And what a unique situation if I'm Jason Tatum that I have JB there to sort of drive the bus when I come back. And B, is Jaylen Brown a top 10 NBA player? Fuck yeah, he's an MVP candidate, right? So for Jason Tatum to have that top 10 NBA player, I just don't think there's much animosity here. The goal is the same for these guys, and they have a beautiful ring at home, both of them. I think it's much ado about nothing. I think it's all positive. I think I'm mostly concerned about his health and in their sort of ability to sort of take some punches, if you will, if they don't play quite as well as they're playing right now. Jaylen Brown is being interviewed talking about how so many individuals are playing really well right now. And in order to infiltrate Tatum back in, there may be a little rust. He may have to get out there. But, Cody puts this up on the board. I think it's Kalshi talking about the Eastern Conference champion. Cody, I know you're bullish on the Celtics. You want to tie the Celtics to everything to win the East. Detroit, to me, is still the team to beat in the East, Gresh. Period.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think it's either Boston or New York. Detroit, too young. I know OKC did it, but that roster is very different. And is Cade Cunningham, and let me ask you this. You just said Jaylen Brown's a top 10 player in the NBA. Is Cade Cunningham better than Jaylen Brown?
No, not for my money, given what Jaylen Brown's accomplished. But
no, but that's my hang up, though. Their best player is viewed below our second best guy. And I know that it's about the team, but I look at the Celtics roster with Tatum back, and then I look at the Detroit roster, and their best player isn't even as good as our second guy. That's why I really feel like it's the Celtics in New York above Detroit, even though Detroit has the great record and they've done a really good job of taking that leap from being a 7 seed last year in the play-in to now being one of the top teams. But honestly, I want the Celtics to play Detroit in the second round of the playoffs. I think they are ripe to be picked because I don't like their depth. Well, let's put it this way. Compared to the Celtics, I don't think they're as deep. I don't think they're as talented, and they don't have that experience. So bring me all of Detroit, baby. Just like I wanted the Rams. Bring me Detroit.
Well, and Vegas would agree with you. For me, that number 1 seed matters maybe more that this season in that particular conference. Maybe it's because the Knicks have shown some chinks in the armor, and maybe it's because it's hard for me to fully believe in the Celtics, right? Because as much as I love adding Jason Tatum back in, I think there are going to be some growing pains, as silly as that may sound. Like, I think it's going to be a kind of a funky situation. And I think that I think it's going to be the idea that they're going to make it all the way to the finals in this type of season, I just think is a big ask. But I don't know. One day at a time. There was a time where the Pistons were favored. For my money today, I see a little value there.
Hey, Jay, real quick. What do you think with Tatum back? What's the best 5 they can put on the floor? Like D White, we already know there's 3. It's D White, it's Brown, and it's Tatum. And then it's who's the other 2, right? So you can mix and match Hugo Gonzalez and Peyton Pritchard.
I love that Hugo Gonzalez was the first name out of your mouth. That warms my heart.
That guy should get some minutes with Tatum and Brown. Absolutely, right? In the right setup where Tatum can play the 4, not the 3. I want to see White, Brown, Hugo, and Tatum out there at the same time with Vucevic.
Did Hugo have a birthday? He's 20 now? Happy birthday, Hugo. I wonder when his 20th birthday was. So I'm with you. It's fascinating. I mean, obviously, if you're asking me to sort of pick a 5, there it is. Happy birthday, kid. It's hard not to put Pritchard in there. Everyone's talking about Vucevic playing with Tatum. Fascinating to see that. As we go through this episode, I'm really starting to think, Celtics really going to emerge to be that team you don't want to face in the postseason.
Yeah.
The Knicks, I have a biased hatred toward New York and dislike for the New York Knicks. So I have maybe a biased fear of the Knicks, right? Maybe it's irrational and not based on the probabilities. But the Knicks, if I'm looking at what my eyes tell me, they don't scare me as much as they did sort of at the outset of the season when I thought they were sort of the class of the East.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And look, in New York, they brought in Mike Brown, thinking that he was going to be the coach to get them over the top. Really what it was is Mike Brown is charged with just trying to do something that Tom Thibodeau couldn't do. But I don't know how much more blood there is to squeeze out of that Knicks rock.
Interesting. Good point.
Is Mike Brown what? I just don't know what Mike Brown can do differently with Brunson, Hart, Bridges, OG, and Anthony Towns. And
offensively, I don't mean to interrupt you, but offensively early on, they were moving the ball a lot better. Like a lot of Knicks fans, like, wow, this is so much better than Tom Thibodeau. But then the league corrects and they adjust. And, I think they're going to have some challenges defensively with Jaylen Brunson being out there, period.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. And that's where having Pritchard out there doesn't hurt you as much, because there are some, weak animals on that Knicks defense, let's say, or people that you can pick on. So that's where maybe having Pritchard in the starting lineup in that series versus coming off the bench might at least be something to consider. But when I look at the East, I really do believe it's just down to Cleveland, Boston, Detroit, and the Knicks. And I put Detroit 4th. I would put Cleveland 3rd. I think it's Boston and the Knicks. And you know what it is, Jay? They're both gritty and they're both tough. If you're telling me that, say, the Knicks are going to play Cleveland and we're going to get Detroit, I'm obviously going Boston and the Knicks because I think that toughness and experience really matters. Like, Cleveland went and got a player who is one of the greatest losers on the planet when it comes to NBA basketball. And that James Harden's going to be the one to get him over the hump.
I hear you. And I think those are some outstanding points about the grittiness and toughness of those two teams and those two cities. Really interesting. All right, let's move on to the baseball. Red Sox report. Where to begin? I guess I'll just start with one place here is that, Alex Bregman was not healthy all of last year. And while I love him and loved him being on the Red Sox, I like the fact that we're just sort of moving on in a way, right? And not so ultimately it gives us the chance to focus on a guy like Jarren Duran, right, who's been an absolute tear, and focus on Ranger Suarez, who to me has that sort of juice that this team needs. So I know that it's a roller coaster. You're going to do your wee thing, but I really, it's hard for me not to get excited every spring when Alex Cora is leading this team. And I think they're better this spring than they were at the beginning of last spring, despite not having Alex Bregman.
Well, not having a real middle of the order bat is my hang up on this team. It's hard to not love their pitching. I mean, it feels like, at least to start the year from a pitching standpoint, it's high quality in the rotation. It's high quality in the bullpen. And you have a guy in Alex Cora who knows how to manage a bullpen. That's one where I definitely give Cora credit, because he doesn't Dusty Baker a bullpen by, game 135 and they got nothing left. And that's where having a good pitching plan and a good manager is really worth their weight in gold. I just want, are they going to become the St. Louis Cardinals in 1986? We're going to hit a single and then we're going to steal a base and then we're going to hope for a pass ball and then there's a sac fly and that's how they're going to score runs this year. I'm bullish on the young players, but to think that like Roman Anthony is going to turn into Manny Ramirez just because the Red Sox gave him a contract, he ain't ready to make that leap yet. I'm sure he can put together a nice year, but when Manny Ramirez came here, he was hitting 45 bombs with 135 RBI. If Roman Anthony has 135 RBIs, I'll suck my own toe on this show. All right. Because I see the way you're looking at me with I get it. People are bullish on Roman Anthony, but if you got 25 bombs and 90 ribbies, that's a hell of a year from the kid. I can't have many expectations for someone like that. And I think the young guys will come along. I just don't know if any of them are all of a sudden going to, Drake May it and be number 2 in the MVP race.
Fair, and that's all good stuff, right? And I think ultimately it's fun as a baseball fan at this time of year because you all got a shot, right? So There's a couple things about Duran, right? Hitting .583 with 3 bombs, 5 RBIs in his Grapefruit League games, right? That's 5 games, but went deep in back-to-back games against Atlanta, Minnesota, including 2 homers, February 28th, that both exceeded 400 feet. Maybe there's power there, but Alex Cora has noted an adjustment to shorter, more direct swing, allowing him to punish left-handing pitching, which was a major weakness from last season. We'll see what happens. It's interesting. I've had some conversations with Brandon McCatherine, who's the head of the Professional Grappling Federation, about being a teacher versus being a coach, right? And he has much more appetite as a jiu-jitsu teacher these days than as a coach, right? And I think we've talked about Mike Vrabel being a teacher and a coach. Mm-hmm. Alex Cora, a teacher and a coach. I think there's some good stuff there. And also these guys, Vrabel and Cora being able to have the personal side, be a player's coach, but not be a player's coach simultaneously, right? And so Ranger Suarez, this is my optimism for you, right? Like, oftentimes the Red Sox really over the last couple decades have felt like a really good place for multicultural. It's like a diverse clubhouse, right? For Hispanic players, right? There's no question he wanted to be here. He talked about wanting to come here because they've won 4 championships the last 20 years. So anyway, I'm just bullish. Ranger Suarez, I think Duran's going to have a good year. And I think if they get out of the gate hot, they could potentially be a little bit of a surprise this year. There's my roller coaster.
I think I think the best case scenario is that everybody has what would be considered a very good year in the lineup. Maybe not anybody who is, setting necessarily personal records with home runs, but maybe being one short or tying it or something like that. Like, look, for me, a best case scenario with a Roman Anthony, 25 bombs, 90 ribbies, I'll sign up for that right now. That sounds like the kid would have had a consistent year. But, like, where do other people fit in terms of their growth? At one point in time, people were rubbing peanut butter all over their nipples about Tristan Casas. Now, I guess we just forgot about that guy because other people came along and, they got signed to contract. Like, is that guy still a factor now?
Could
is
be.
That
I know not your favorite guy.
No, but is that a guy who can, hang around and maybe hit you 20 home runs or something like that? It's like found money. So who are going to be those guys? Here's my other question too, Jay. And this is where on the lineup, I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt. On this, I will give the benefit of the doubt to Alex Cora in that, is this team going to field it the way they need to behind this pitching staff? If your margins are going to be razor thin in terms of scoring runs, you better pick it, you better make the tough plays, and you better not stress out your pitchers by dicking around in the field, which has been a problem in the past. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that won't be a problem. But after 40 games, we reserve our right to kind of reevaluate. And I hope that part of the game doesn't become a big part of the Red Sox narrative early on, because then you're really stretching your pitching staff and you're putting undue pressure on the roster that Lord knows they don't need right now in terms of scoring runs.
Great point. So well taken. And I think that's what, again, comes back to the manager, right? I think that Cora is able to strike this balance where the guys have some juice, that if they get out to a 1-4 start, they're still going to believe, they're still going to be buying in. And I think your point's so well taken. If you execute the fundamentals, I do think the talent on this team could potentially rise a little bit and they could make it interesting. I don't really envision this team having some horrible season. Do you know what I mean? I think they're a little bit too talented for that. So I think it almost feels like the only way is for it to go up. And I feel like they have more chance this year than in several years past to be more elite from a standpoint, like from the starting pitching, right? To really be able to tote a guy out there every 5 days that gives you a better chance to win. So we'll see.
So let's take a look at some odds real quick. Winning the division, the Yankees are plus 180, Toronto's plus 250. And the Red Sox are plus 320. Now, they also have a top 2 option. And this might be the one where if you think the Red Sox are going to finish, say, second in the division this year, plus 120. So if you like the Red Sox and you think they're going to at least be better than either one of the Blue Jays or the Yankees to finish second in the division, you are looking at plus money right there. In terms of the playoffs, here you go, Jay. Red Sox are minus 170. They're 5th on the board in terms of odds when it comes to making the playoffs. Yeah. The Mariners are minus 280. Yanks are minus 270. And then it's Toronto, Detroit, and then the Red Sox. And then it's down to Baltimore, Houston. They're at minus 115. People have Baltimore being competitive this year. That's interesting. Win total, hang on here. Let's go to 87.5. The under is minus 105. The over is minus 115. So a little juiced to the over at 87.5.
Division's going to be good, man.
Yeah. That's the that and look, normally it was 2 teams that you could plan on beating up on for a long period of time. Now Tampa's going to be down this year. They're going to be as bad as their stadium as they're trying to rehab that Tropicana field. But will the Orioles be competitive? I think relative to a Red Sox total, really it's the evaluation of Baltimore, because that used to be what, 12 to 14 wins every year. It felt like they just hammered Baltimore all the time. So we'll see about the lineup. And if everybody can just have an above average year in that lineup, they got a real chance, because the pitching is there and there are still young resources to trade in the organization. Now, whether they want to add payroll, that's another part of the story. But in terms of having tradable chips, they still have quite a handful.
Cody just put up Roman Anthony to have over 90 RBIs, plus 350. I like that. Over 80 plus 175. Those are good bets there, Bone Marrow. Good stuff there. All right, let's move on to the Patriots. You know, I want to start here. Albert Breer, your boy.
Yeah.
I think some rumblings that Max Crosby potentially could be on the market. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you can talk to me about A.J. Brown. You can talk to me about the draft. You can talk to me about blah, blah, blah. I guess some of the defensive ends perhaps didn't perform as well at the combine, which is why there's maybe more juice here for Max Crosby. I still don't think Brady would allow the Patriots to acquire Max Crosby, right? He was rooting for the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. I just don't think he lets Max Crosby go to the Patriots. But if Max Crosby is available, Gresh, there are a few things I wouldn't do. I wouldn't do much to get A.J. Brown, if you want to know the truth. I would, Patriots said the price was too high. I agree. But the price couldn't be higher, in my opinion, if you have the chance to get a guy like Max Crosby, because I believe that piece puts the 7th trophy manifested into my world.
Wow. So you're of the one player away. He's the one player.
I put him on a real pedestal in terms of the whole package.
I do not see him nor AJ Brown as the pathway to be able to beat Seattle. I think the defense, the way it's going, keep adding interior D-line depth. There are a lot of edge guys, let's call them, in this draft. In fact, the Jets are probably going to fall in love with the kid from Texas Tech after the day that he put up. It was, from a numbers stand, I think David Bailey, from a numbers standpoint. My God, it was crazy. I think if you're New England, you're a year away from being a player away. Does that make sense?
That's a great way to put it.
It feels like if this were 2027 and it were, well, Crosby's there and we can fit him in for the year before we got to start paying Drake, and it's only going to be a late first-round pick, then okay. I'm not giving up multiple first-round picks for this guy. Ain't no way. You want the end. If I'm going to get Max Crosby with pick number 31 this year and I can deal with the money, I'm going to be pretty happy about that. That's great value to just flip a first round pick. Now it feels like it'd be a lot more than that. And that's where, for me, I kind of draw the line. Now, if New England had a bunch of middle round picks, Jay, then I would say, okay, take the late first and package a couple of thirds or figure out how you could value it up and go ahead and liquidate your extra assets to be able to get someone like that. I just feel like they're going to be a little more free agent selective this year, if that makes sense. Last year, we forget they got the best player on the market in Milton Williams. The number one guy that was out there last year, New England got. So I give them a lot of credit for that because arguably that guy helped push them to the Super Bowl. So to me, I don't need the big ticket item. Quite honestly, do you want the one fancy suitcase or do you want the nice set? I'll take the nice set because I think adding 3 players to strengthen different positions will mean more overall to the performance of others than just having one guy in Max Crosby come in where it's really about him and his numbers.
Great stuff there all the way around. Do you think K'Lavon Chaisson is coming back?
Yes.
I hope so. He put something in his Instagram story.
I was going to say, I thought he put something in his story almost leading us to think he's coming back.
Right. And then nothing else after that. But it really is interesting. Because I'm trying to think, the linebacker for the Eagles that signed a very short-term deal, and then he was the name is escaping me, but then he just signed a long-term deal after winning the Super Bowl. Chaisson just feels like such a good fit here, and I know there's going to be some interest on the market, so I was surprised to see that he sort of, I think, was on back or something like that. So I hope maybe that something worked out there because I like that piece a lot. It sounds like you do too. Zach Bond, that's a guy, Cody, I believe.
Yeah, I know. I like Chaisson. That's a guy who I think you want back in the building. And the other thing too, with a guy like Chaisson, yeah, there'll be people that are interested, but it's not going to be ridiculous. I don't think he is going to cost an insane amount of money. And let's remember, Mike Vrabel favorite Harold Landry is on the other side of Chaisson. So when we start to think about Crosby or this guy or that guy, That's why I say maybe focus on the interior. And Jay, this is a pretty good defensive tackle draft. There were a lot of large people who could move pretty quickly, and some different body types, like guys who are 6'3". There was one dude who was testing, I think he was 6'3", 290, and they were talking about him playing over a guard. But at 6'3", 290, that's small for a defensive lineman. Like, you think of Milton Williams, and he looks like he's in shape at about 320 pounds. You know, you're putting a 285-pound guy in there. It's like, he better be Aaron Donald, you know. Like, that was Aaron Donald's size, 6'3", 285. Yeah. And he's beat the hell out of people.
So Cody has a quote here from Chase on, quote, call the guys and tell them I'm trying to come back. Tell them don't play. Tell them I'm trying to be here. Yeah, there's also an underlying in that. Tell them to throw me some cash too, right? And there's certainly components, but I trust the Patriots brass to sort of handle things. I'm excited to see where they go. I really think it's very, very difficult in this league to sort of achieve great things and put yourself in a position to win football games. But I also think that while the Patriots were very fortunate in terms of certain things this season, there was other things that did go a little bit against them, right? Milton Williams and Will Campbell both got banged up. I know Milton Williams really did seem fully healthy by the end, but Will Campbell and Drake May both banged up toward the end of the year. Maybe they'll be healthy, but I just think the offensive line needs to look a lot different as next season begins.
Yeah, I would, it'll be interesting to see where they think they can upgrade this team kind of along both lines of scrimmage. And how do they view tight end? No one's talking about tight end because Hunter Henry has done a nice job, but boy, oh boy, it'd be really nice to have another Hunter Henry type. And
I don't want Isaiah Likely.
Well, I want somebody who can also put their hand on the ground and, you know, doesn't fucking have to stand in the slot or be in motion all the time. Like, can I run a true zero set where the defense has to decide how am I gonna deal with a team that realistically can run the ball to either side because I don't have a tight end who's just titty bumping out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cody wants them to get Isaiah Likely. I just couple balls he didn't squeeze in big spots ring out in my mind, but I don't know, man. Isaiah Likely doesn't know. No thanks.
Yeah, I would rather look to the draft this year.
Yes, I agree.
In terms of so did you hear about, now this is a true project, okay? There's a kid from Vanderbilt. His name is Eli Stowers, right? So this kid started as like a quarterback at Texas A&M. And what happens to fat quarterbacks? They turn him into tight ends. So my old coach, Terry Lynch, who I love and recruited me, he was a fat quarterback, became a tight end. But this kid Stowers, 6'4", 240, had an insane vert, ran a crazy 40, and tested like off the charts. Jay, when you look at him, you know how there's some athletes you look at and you say, oh boy, wait till they get their body right. Look at Jason Tatum when he first came into the league and look at him now. He's put a lot of work into his body. When Eli Stowers does that, you might have a Gronk type player. This guy is like, he's a moose. Played at Vanderbilt, so he's not stupid. You know, because I mean, even though you don't have to go to class no more at Vanderbilt, I think that might make you go to some. And in the meaty part of the draft, like say pick 70 to 110, there's going to be a lot of tight ends. Look at this. So that's a white dude with a 45.5 vert. I think it's better than almost everybody in the NBA draft combine last year. Like this kid,
you know where he's projected?
He is a mid to late second round pick. Now again, look at broad jump, 11-3. Get the F out of here.
So Gresh, do you think they would consider end of round one?
Oh, no. I don't think they move him up end of round one. You know why, Jay? Because you could, if that is like the target, you could probably get in middle of the second, slide back with your one and get you some extra picks instead of overdrafting him, slide back to be able to get him. But this tight end, there's a There's a kid out of Ohio State, Max Clar. He's another one. Another big, again, 6'4.5", 245, 250 pounds. But you got kids who play outdoors, which I think is important. A little bit of cold weather. I know Nashville isn't warm all the time. And get me somebody who's been asked to block before.
Exactly.
Listen, Aaron Hernandez, the player, was a dream because if you put him on the move, he could block a little bit, right? So you could still fake people out. You can't put the guys opposite of Hunter Henry with their hand down and think that you got a balanced formation out there. So, there's Clar.
Give me the other kid.
I mean, Stowers is just insane from an athletic standpoint. But anyway, I know I got long-winded there, and I knew the Stowers kid tested through the roof. And I mean, a 45.5 vert. Again, I just go back to it's a white dude, right? Like the safety from Oregon ran like I think it was like a 4.3 240 or something like that. And the first thing my man Nelson texted me, he was like, "Do you see that white boy run?" And I'm like, what? I mean, and there's Kenyon Sadiq, the other tight end, who's from Oregon. He's probably going to be a top 15 pick. Let me tell you, if that guy somehow slid to 28 or 29, wherever, 31. There's no way. No, this
30,
kid.
Aren't they 31?
Or 31, yeah. An 8-touchdown season for a team that, was scoring 50 a game.
So you must be really excited to come out to Vegas this week. I think it's a real shame that I fly home on a red-eye Wednesday night and you get here on Thursday. It's just bad, but I'm coming here every Tuesday for 6 weeks. I had no options, but I think you have a sneaky good card here. So maybe we'll get to the card in a minute, a couple picks there, but Cody put a really good question in our rundown. And I just want to voice it. I have a quick answer, but he says, is the BMF title, because Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira will be headlining this weekend, is the BMF title more I'm not going to use that word. I can't. I'll tell you why later. More impact to fans than the 125-pound men's flyweight title? BMF or flyweight? Which has more impact for you?
Oh, the flyweight, 100%. Look, I'm a wrestling fan, okay? This is the Rock's title. Actually, this isn't the Rock's title. This is, you know what this is? This is the BMF belt is the TKO novelty belt because it was given by The Rock at UFC. So a WWE guy who's a big-time movie star, we all know that, right? And who was doing the Smashing Machine, but there was all kinds of cross-pollination. But I know I'm just going to see a hell of a fight Saturday night. I'm not even thinking about the BMF belt. Fine. Put the WWE Intercontinental title on the line. Who cares? Like, seriously, I know I'm going to see a banger of a fight. So for me, it's definitely the flyweight, Jay. Where do you land on it?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that division has more juice for me than others. I mean, Tyra, Pantoja, Van, a lot of good fighters up there. I could go on and on. So
yep.
I agree with you completely. One more thing I want to touch on before we get into this weekend's card.
Mm-hmm.
Does really seem like John Jones and Poatan are going to fight at the White House. Doesn't it feel like that's coming? Doesn't it feel like it?
It does. All Poatan's got to do is get the belt, right?
Yeah, right. Well,
I mean, that's like the next. That's.
You mean, did he vacate light heavyweight?
I think there was an announcement that he did. So as long as Poatan becomes the interim.
Oh, you're saying he's got to get. I get it. Got to get.
Yeah. He's got to win the interim fight to then set up John Jones. Because if he loses, he ain't fighting John Jones.
So I also think McGregor fights. I mean, right? He's been the most tested athlete in the USADA testing pool. I mean, the fact that you're getting Conor McGregor back and what appears to be a Conor McGregor that is not doing things to his body maybe that he shouldn't. I mean, he could be really dangerous as a man at this stage.
Yeah, it's interesting that, he's cleaned up. He's back in the testing program. I think he may have found God. I don't know. So listen, if that works for you and it makes him a better person, then, all good for him. But when I heard the number, Jay, that the spear was a $20 million layout for UFC, and apparently the White House is a $60 million layout. I'm going to assume there might have been a fighter salary or two baked into that $60 million.
Makes sense.
If you're doing your cost for that event, I don't know what McGregor's getting. I could guess. I mean, he's probably getting 9 figures. He might get 10 mil to show up for that because it's got everybody talking about it. And here's the thing. If nothing else on that card materializes, you at least have the return of Conor McGregor at the White House. So you're still taking care of all your network partners in the White House and Trump and all that stuff. But I hope we get a card for the White House that is, along the lines of UFC 300. I expect them to really roll it out. Like this UFC 326 card, Jay, there may not be the big time main event for a real title, but the 5 fights on the main card are, they are great fights.
And bro, I think there's some opportunities to make money on this card.
Are you thinking Rainier de Ritter like me or no?
So it's so interesting, right? I didn't listen fully to the Anik and Florian podcast. So Cody, feel free to chime in here because I didn't hear what some of those guys picked, but I wanted to just give you one play that I found interesting. So Matty Betts, I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I am.
On X, right? So he came on today because they're doing this new card breaking segment on the Anik and Florian podcast. And he gave out Drew Dober plus 130 against Michael Johnson, right? You see it here as plus 102. And I think it's really interesting. And I'm just curious if you have any lean on that fight or it's a coin flip layoff for you, because I believe Kenny Florian and Ian Parker handicapping that fight at the end of the show were on Johnson, but I kind of liked where Betts was going with Dober. Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'm on the Michael Johnson side because I just think with Drew Dober, it takes one shot and that's it. And he crumbles and falls apart, in my opinion. You know what? My wife loves him though. Thinks he's like the most handsome guy on the roster. It's really crazy. So whenever there's a Drew Dober fight, she's always interested. But no, I'm
that's why you guys going to Vegas so your wife could see.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. It's no, I'm Michael Johnson as a skinny favorite there.
And
interesting.
Cody with a quick interjection. Cody apparently thinks Carlos Ulberg is hot. So we'll get that out there.
Yeah. Interesting. He said, I think both Kenny and Ian like the MJ. And then Gregory Rodriguez and Bruno Ferreira. I mean, I love Gregory Rodriguez. He's so I just love watching him fight. That guy is unique. He looks like he's like 65 years old.
So let's move to back to that co-main event. Rainier de Ritter plus what's the line there? 230. I saw plus 230. Thank you, Cody. Plus 235. I think that's a big number.
Yeah.
What are your?
I like Rainier de Ritter in this fight. I do. And especially at that price, it feels like a steal.
He felt as though he was competing too regularly. I think you're going to get a really primed Rainier de Ritter, and I think he can perhaps handle what's coming back at him. And I just think it's a good number there. The main event doesn't interest me much from a gambling standpoint, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
Charles Oliveira is become a bit of a wild card for me. Very difficult sometimes to figure out what I'm going to get there. Seems as though Max is sort of undeniable at 55. So hard for me not to peak there, but it can be dangerous throwing a guy like Holloway and I shouldn't say throwing a guy like Holloway, but the Moreno parlay, you throw the main event favorite minus 230, you know what I mean? So playing with fire a little bit in MMA there, I think.
Yeah, I have a thought on that main event, but real quick, Rainier de Ritter finally lost in UFC. So he finally proverbial took one on the chin, and I'm expecting the bounce off of that. That guy's really talented. And Jay, I'm kind of with you. It got real quick for him, kind of the way it did for Poatan at one point in time. It felt like, holy shit, every 3 months, this guy's turning around and fighting. So I do think for Rainier de Ritter, he needed that UFC loss and to kind of get smacked to then go back. Now back to the main event. I want to go Oliveira in part because I think He is, and listen, I don't want to make it sound like I'm shitting on Max Holloway because I'm not. That guy, he's a UFC first ballot Hall of Famer. Everybody respects Max Holloway. I just think Charles Oliveira is the more well-rounded fighter. Both of these guys have high level experience, and if Charles Oliveira is going to stand there and throw at Max Holloway, he's going to get beat. If Oliveira has a complete fight where he's using his legs and he's using everything, that's where I think Oliveira beats Max Holloway. But if it's going to be, hey, come to the middle and let's fight, nope, that's bad. And I don't think Oliveira will get sucked into that the way Gaethje did at the end of their fight with Holloway, and his fight with Holloway.
Good analysis there. I agree with it. And I hope you have a great time out there. It should be a great card. I want to do one thing before we get out of here. So every year, John, for his bosses, a couple of his producers, let's make Gresh pick a PGF team. That's great, Cody. And you know what? Cody had a quarterback carousel that we might need to just do too. But real quick, all right, you got to give me one team, Gresh, PGF season, 2026 PGF season. Vegas Kings, Alabama Twisters, Philadelphia Phenoms, Colorado Wolverines. Thank you, Cody.
I'm going to go with Colorado.
Oh, so I'll quickly tell you. The owner of the Colorado Wolverines, David Seagraves, he was in our broadcast booth. He was the stats guy and purchased this Colorado Wolverines team. His son, CJ, is the general manager. So I love that you picked that team. So every year, John, for his bosses, at this time of year, John and I go to a sports book and we buy like 15.
Yes, I remember this because last year one of them ended up
we hit the Indiana Pacers Eastern Conference 42-1 last year. So, but anyway, so John buys $100 tickets, about 15 of them, and lets his bosses pick 3 of them off the table. $100 futures. Let's say it's the NHL Western Conference champion, the NBA Eastern Conference champion,
I love it.
NBA champ, NHL champ. So Cody, let's pull up some of these lines. And sometimes we try to get juicy, like we might throw one NFL long shot in there. We'll throw some NCAA teams on there. So I know Michigan may be chalky, maybe there's some teams to peek at. So Cody, do me a favor if you can. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you, Cody, because you're quarterback wheel, but go to some NBA futures, Western Conference, for example, right? So I like how the Spurs match up against OKC. So I think the Spurs will probably be a ticket that we would purchase, right? So let's go to the Western Conference, Cody. Forgive me for a sec. All right, so Spurs 5-1. I'm sure we would probably purchase that. One thing he would maybe do with OKC is maybe purchase a $200 ticket on OKC, and that would count, like maybe get cute if you want to take that favorite. But, I don't know what teams are live. Do you think Houston is live in the Western Conference?
No.
I agree.
No, I think you're down to 3 in the West, OKC, Denver, and San Antonio.
So typically he would go San Antonio, Denver, and leave the chalk.
That's fine. But you know what? If I got that Denver ticket, I'd be pretty happy. I mean, I'd feel pretty good about it. With the way the schedule is going to break down, I think in the East, it would be Boston or New York. I guess you could, if you wanted to throw the Pistons or the Cavs in there, you could. I just think it's down to Boston and New York, and that value is really good. I mean,
and it's interesting as we have this conversation, this will help John later. It's kind of chalky, right? Like there aren't those opportunities out there necessarily where it doesn't feel as wide open maybe as last year was. Cody, take a peek at the NHL hockey Western and Eastern Conference real quickly. Let's just take a peek at some of these, then we can look at the NCAA tournament.
Oh, because I got some NCAA tournament pools for you.
All right. So hockey may be a little more wide open. We know it's a new season. So anything in the NHL, I don't follow this league closely enough. Wow.
I would say you got to go Tampa, Carolina, and then you got to go Colorado, Vegas. Those would be the only 4 that are because
Edmonton Oilers 6-1. I think that is some best player in the world. What are the Winnipeg?
They're not guy, Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid doesn't win shit.
Go up to the East.
He can't even win the gold.
What are the Boston Bruins? 80-1.
Yeah, they're Oh, and that's for the East. Jesus, 80-1. Have fun with that. Go to the NCAA. That's where. No, you know why?
And
Let me tell you.
Before we get out of here in OT, we got to do the quarterback wheel. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so if John's going to be picking a bunch of these, now look.
Yeah, give me some juice.
All right, so there's the top 3 of Michigan, Duke, Arizona. Those are the teams that everybody's on. Jay, if you have sharp college basketball people in that crew that John's buying for, they'll be all over the Florida ticket. It was at 800. It was 900 yesterday when I was doing VSiN.
Bro.
Florida's down to 800, and let me give you the other one too.
Wait.
Okay, sorry.
The other one, I just want to remind you that John hit Florida 30-1.
Yeah.
Last year. Go ahead.
So I think he could buy Michigan, Duke, Arizona, because those odds are still worth it.
I agree with that.
Florida, and again, a lot like Denver, if you gave me a UConn ticket at plus 1,600, they're probably now going to be that's a number 1 seed with a coach that's an asshole.
I love it. No, I think that's great. And for this exercise, if I'm one of these producers picking these tickets, you want to have action right away. So there's good value to your point. I think we go maybe 5 or 6 NCAA tickets out of the 15.
If you're going to add another one, go to do Houston. So Michigan, Duke, Arizona, Florida, Houston, UConn. If someone is smart, they're on Florida or UConn, in my opinion. UConn at plus 1,600. That's a number 1 seed. That is 16-1.
Yep.
That just screams value.
All right. Cody had this quarterback wheel prepared for us. We don't have to go crazy. The one player that I know that we do not agree on necessarily as we move to NFL free agency is former Green Bay Packers backup quarterback Malik Willis. So Cody, we'll give you a minute here. So Cody, feel free to get your microphone hot. What are we envisioning here? How's this thing work?
This is great. Click to spin.
So we're going to spin the wheel, and you guys are going to decide where these guys are going to end up, where they should end up, and where they will end up.
Jesus.
Oh, my God. Spin that wheel, please. Oh, I like this. This is high-level shit.
Well, and I'm ill-prepared. Oh, we got it. Aaron Rodgers. I love it.
Aaron Rodgers either goes back to the Steelers or he goes home to fornicate with his clandestine wife.
So if you were to tell me that Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers are hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in Pittsburgh next year, right? Like if I'm a Steelers fan in 2026 is McCarthy Rodgers, is there a vomit bag close by? I like Rodgers. I just feel as though, unfortunately, even though it seems like Pittsburgh or nowhere, if I really thought about it, I'd rather see him go somewhere else, and I'm not sure that place exists.
Yeah, I think for Aaron Rodgers and for the Pittsburgh Steelers, by the way, their best chance of playing and or having a chance to be successful next year is in Pittsburgh. If Pittsburgh doesn't have Aaron Rodgers, I mean, who are they going to go with? You know, the Will Howard, who they drafted in the 6th round from Ohio State. I mean, Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, go with Will Howard and maybe tank. And but Mike McCarthy, I mean, comedy. I would not want to be a Steelers fan.
All right, next.
And we'll do 3 more of these, and if we don't get Malik Willis, we'll do him. And we're getting him.
Oh.
So Gresh, Dan Orlovsky, a couple months ago, during the regular season, pushed out a tweet, and I think that's when you and I first disagreed, talking about Malik Willis getting, $50-60 million in the offseason, right? I would think Orlovsky stands by his statement. I couldn't agree more. I think 27 years old. I loved what I saw from him as a backup. In limited work, I understand, but really good things, right? And in his limited work in Tennessee, right, he was under Vrabel. Vrabel was part of the sort of group that drafted him. I just feel as though the situation could not have been worse in Tennessee, could not have been better in Green Bay. And if I were one of these teams, knowing how difficult it is to hit a home run from the quarterback position, I would look so hard at him. I'd be willing to throw him a bag. I've heard some, rumblings about the Dolphins, perhaps. I don't know. Is that where you think is the likely destination?
because of Halfley, and they'll be able to funny money Willis's contract as they mess around with Tua. And by the way,
you like Willis?
Oh my God. Because he's another one of these guys who got out of a bad situation and went to one that he's not going to find anywhere else. Stability, offensive-minded coach, a lot of good things, that not a lot of pressure on him. And let me give you this food for thought, okay? And I said this to a longtime NFL executive over the weekend, and he went, I didn't think of that. When's the last time, other than when they wanted to get rid of Brett Favre, who ultimately, they did with what they did? When's the last time the Green Bay Packers let a good quarterback go in free agency versus taking that back up and trading that guy? I know it's going back to Ron Wolf, but if you look at them organizationally, they have to do things differently because they don't have an owner. That's why they'll draft a guy and let Aaron Rodgers sit for 3 years, or draft Love and let him sit for 3 years, because for them, they know they have to have that guy in waiting. Now, they think they got their guy in Jordan Love, and that's fine. But if Malik Willis was that good and people were going to be that horny for him, I think they would have been able to maximize the asset, because that's what they do in Green Bay. And I looked this up the other day. Hasselbeck, Brunell, remember Aaron Brooks? Right? That guy went to New Orleans, big, long, rangy Aaron Brooks. That was the guy that got traded from Green Bay. They always maximize their assets when they can, because they have to manage their assets differently. And yeah, you could say, hey, this guy would have been going to free agency, but if you were down to 2 and the rent was due and you just needed a QB to get you through, he could have been that guy maybe for a middle round pick, and they either didn't want to move him or nobody wanted him, and someone's going to overpay for him because he just happens to be the best quarterback available that someone is going to overpay. But he's coming from an organization that normally doesn't let those guys walk.
Well, and if a guy like Kirk Cousins can be on your roster and demand a certain amount of money, I would take a $30 million flyer on a guy like Malik Willis. I don't think it's outrageous that he could have success other places, but I think your points are very well taken about Green Bay. And this situation just might have been a situation where they really weren't in a position to do that much with the asset, given all the circumstances. But I think we can end it there in terms of the quarterback. We'll do this wheel again next week, but I wanted to touch on Malik Willis because I just believe in this kid in a way I haven't believed in similar quarterbacks in that situation in a long, long time. And whether I'm going to be right or wrong, but if I were a fan of the Steelers, for example, right, I would want them to go super aggressively after Malik Willis.
We in New England should be rooting for teams New England plays to sign Malik Willis.
Couldn't disagree more.
And we'll revisit that during the season. What's the rest of the day look like there, Waldo?
Might meet up with my guy Tony Farmer, collect some cash from a Survivor contest, perhaps. I don't know.
Look at you. Did you bring a duffel bag to haul it home?
I didn't. The government prevented it from being enough for a duffel bag. No, but I don't know exactly what the day has in hold. John's tied up for a few hours. I'm taking John to dinner tonight, I think.
What?
Which very rarely happens.
Wow, the food court. Well, I'll tell you, the food court at Ellis Island better look out, baby.
It's hilarious. But no, I'm excited to be out here. What I will say is I've done a much better job my last couple times out here of being disciplined in the casino, right? Because, you got a couple hours to kill and there's a casino downstairs. So I try to gravitate toward the sports book rather than tables and slots, because the sports book tends to clear up a little bit out in Vegas. You sit on your phone back home dicking around, but when you're out here and you just go place cash bets, sometimes it can crystallize. So we'll see.
Since I know where you are, I do believe you will find good value at the tables for Pie Gal. And if you just took $200, you will play for 2 hours. You may not win a ton, but if you just, maintain to the minimums and stay disciplined, and just consistent, you'd be fine. You would not blow a bankroll. And I know when I go to play Pai Gow, I go with a couple $100, and normally I'm there for, a couple hours. Now, I also love Pai Gow.
Yes. Well, hey, it sounds appealing. $200 to play for a couple hours would be worth my time.
Yeah, there you go.
Cody.
You'll be good, buddy. All right, there you go. Cody, Bone Marrow, congratulations on the new gig. We'll be locked in on Mondays at 9 a.m. That's right.
Yes.
So after every weekend, instead of getting the normal horse shit that you're used to getting, you can come to us here on Gas, and we'll give you our version of horse shit. It's at least different than other people's and definitely better. For Vegas J, I am Gresh. We are out of here. Great job, Cody. We'll see you next Monday, 9 a.m.